Hi folks, welcome to the 8.2 lecture video. And in this video, we're going to talk a little bit more about the trigonometric functions that we learned about in 8.1. Okay, and in this section in particular, we are going to focus on focus on looking at sine and cosine. All right, those are going to be the two most important ones that we walk out of here understanding, because those are the ones that we're going to look at our derivatives and our integrals a lot. Okay. But to build a little bit of background information, we want to make sure that we know how to find function values for sine and cosine using something called the unit circle. We want to be able to graph what sine and cosine look like, and it'll be less important for us to know how to graph it. It'll be more important for us to recognize what it looks like, okay? And then we are also going to spend a little bit of time talking about the four other trigonometric functions, okay? The other four don't come up as often, but I think it's important to know because once in a while they do pop up, okay? So we'll get started with our unit circle, okay? So let's start with this definition. It turns out that a unit circle is nothing more than a circle that has a center right at the origin, and the radius of this circle is exactly 1. And so I'm going to ask us to look at this circle for a moment. I know it looks so busy. There's like 80 million numbers on here, but at the end of the day, look at where the center is. The center is at the origin. And if I go out to the right, it's only 1 unit out. Or if I go up 1 unit, it's only up 1 unit, right? So we can see that this radius is actually 1. And so the cool thing about this unit circle is that it has a lot of angles on here, all right? So for us, we're going to be in degrees, but it sometimes will be in what we call radians as well, okay? And we learned about those in 8.1, but we've got 0 degrees, we've got 90 degrees, we've got 180 degrees, we could even go to 300 degrees. But what's important to note, and let's put a little bit of a reminder here for ourselves, is where this red star is, that's where we start counting. And we always go this way when we go around our unit circle. Okay. Now, all of the angles are on the inside of this unit circle, and then we usually write all of the coordinates on the outside. And so what I want you to focus on for a moment, I'm going to go through and highlight all of the x coordinates in the first quadrant, and then we'll talk about what those mean, okay? So the x here is 1, root 3 over 2, root 2 over 2, 1 over 2, and 0. And I could go all the way around the unit circle and keep doing this, but what I've just highlighted, every single x value, all right? So the x values, those, as it turns out, are where we find cosine on our unit circle, okay? So for example, if I said, I want to know cosine of 90 degrees, okay? So if I said cosine of 90 degrees, then what I would do is I would find 90 degrees on my unit circle, and then I would find the x value that's there, okay? So since the x value is 0, it means that cosine of 90 is 0. We're going to do a few more examples, but I just want to do one to make sure we kind of get the hang of what we're looking for. Let's go back to our highlighter. Okay, this time in the first part of it, I'm going to highlight the y values. So 0, 1/2, root 2 over 2, root 3 over 2, and 1. And all of these values, okay, it turns out that the y values, well, those tell us about the sine of an angle, All right. So what I mean by that is if I say, I want you to find sine of 90 degrees, okay? Last time we did cosine of 90 degrees, but sine of 90 degrees means I go to 90 degrees and I go and I find the y value there. So that y value is 1, which means sine of 90 degrees is 1. Okay. And that's pretty much what we're going to be looking at on our unit circle. Okay. So on the exam, I will have a unit circle for you. You don't need to worry about printing one out. I'll have one for you. But with our x values and our y values, keep in mind that the x values are cosine and the y values are sine. All right. So let's take a look at some examples. And I'm going to be specific here. We're going to take a look at some examples without a calculator, and we're going to take a look at some with a calculator. Okay, so let's take a look at these first 8. So if I have sine of pi over 6, what that means is I want to go to pi over 6 and I want to find the y value there. Okay, and so if we go back to our unit circle and we go to the angle pi over 6, we find that the y value is 1/2. So my answer here, sine of pi over 6, is 1/2. Okay? So let me write out the instructions for the other ones. So for example 2, it says sine of pi over 3. That means I want to go to pi over 3 and I want to find the y value. Okay. And in fact, 3 and 4 are going to be super similar. I'm going to go to 2 pi over 3, and I'm going to find the y value. And then for number 4, I'm going to go to 3 pi over 4, and I'm going to find the y value. Now, the reason why for all 4 of these we're finding y values is because we have the word sine, okay? So let me go ahead and highlight that. This word sine is what tells us we want to go and find the y values, okay? Now I'll let you go back to the other screen, see if you can find those values, but I think we should get for sine of pi over 3, we get square root of 3 over 2. For sine of 2 pi over 3, I also get square root of 3 over 2. And for sine of 3 pi over 4, I get root 2 over 2. Those are all the y values at those angles, okay? All right, now let's take a look at 5, 6, 7, and 8. For 5, 6, 7, and 8, notice that I don't have the word sine in there anymore. I have the word cosine. Okay. And then when we see cosine, what that tells us is we want to go to an angle and now we want to find the x value. Okay. So for number 5, I want to go to 2 pi over 3, but I want to now look at what the x value is there. Okay, so let's do that one together. Then I'll give you some time to take a look at 6, 7, and 8 on your own. Okay, so for cosine of 2 pi over 3, I'm going to go up to my unit circle. I find 2 pi over 3, and I want to find the x value, which is a negative 1/2. Okay, so what that means is cosine of 2 pi over 3 equals negative 1/2. Okay, now I'm going to modify my sentences for the other questions here for 7 and 6 and 8. And the reason I'm able to copy and paste these is because I'm going to different angles, but I'm still finding the x values, okay? So let me erase my angles because that's what's going to be different. So for 7, you want to go to 3 pi over 2 and find the x value. For 6, you want to go to 3 pi over 4 and find the x value. And for 8, you want to go to pi and find the x value. Okay. And when you do that, cosine of 3 pi over 4 should be negative root 2 over 2. Cosine of 3 pi over 2 should be 0. And whoops, cosine of pi should be negative 1. All right, so you'll see for these last 8 examples that we actually are going to do these with a calculator, okay? So if you have your own calculator, absolutely fine. If you don't have a calculator, you can go ahead and go to desmos.com and they have a calculator that you can use, okay? The only tricky part, well, there's two tricky parts. But the two tricky parts that we need to be aware of. First, we need to know, are we in radians or are we in degrees? Okay, because our calculator is only going to be in one of those at one time. So if you want to be in degrees, you have to make sure your calculator is in degrees. But if you're in radians, you need your calculator to be in radians. Okay. So let's go through and I'm going to write all the ones that are in degrees first, and we're going to do those. Make sure our calculator's in degrees. Then we're going to change our calculator to radians, and then we're going to go through and do the ones in radians. Okay. All right. So I know something is in degrees when I see the little degree symbol. Okay. So I know that example 9 is in degrees. Let's do a little copy paste. All right, what else is in degrees? Looks like example 10 is in degrees. Looks like example 11 is in degrees. And looks like example 15 is in degrees. And I know that again because it has the degree symbol there, okay? But let's take a look at the other ones. If they don't have a degree symbol, what that means is then we are in radians, okay? So 3.43, no degree symbol, we're in radians. Cotangent of -2, no degree symbol, so we're in radians. Cosine of 1.56, no degree symbol, so I'm in radians. And same thing here, secant 1, no degree symbol, so I'm in radians. Okay, so whichever calculator you're using, let's go ahead and make sure we're in degrees. We're going to go through and do all the green ones first. All right, so if I take my calculator and I type sine of 10 degrees, I'm going to get 0.174. And there's a lot of other decimal places. I think 3 is absolutely enough for us, so we'll go like 0.174, okay? All right, now go ahead and try number 10. Type in cosine. You want to make sure you see a negative sign here, so cosine of negative 52 degrees. And when you type that in, you should get 0.616. Okay. It's okay that we have decimals here, and it's going to be weird decimals. Totally fine. Okay. You don't need to write them all. 3 is absolutely enough. All right. Let's try tangent of 141 degrees. When we type that one in, we should get negative 0.810. Okay. And last but not least, we're going to go down to number 15. This one is where we're going to talk about one of the tricky things. If you're using Desmos, you can type in cosecant. That's fine. But on a regular calculator, what you actually have to do first is this. Cosecant is the reciprocal of sine. That means it's going to be 1 over sine of 1 degree. Okay. In a lot of calculators, this is how you have to type it in, like 1 divided by sine of whatever you want. And when you do that, you should get 50. Let's make sure we've got this right. And we should get 57.299. Okay. All right. So if you're feeling stuck, like you don't know how to get these values or your calculator's not working, feel free to reach out. I'm happy to help you out here. I know every calculator works a little bit differently, okay? But wherever you are, whether you're on Desmos or on your calculator, you're gonna go ahead and change your calculator's mode to radians, okay? Usually that's under the mode button. That will be where you can change it from degrees to radians, okay? Or like at the top bar, it'll have like a D and you want to change it to an R. But once you've changed the mode, you basically do the same thing. You type in sine 3.43. I think you get negative 0.284. Okay. All right. Let's go actually to number 14 for a moment. Cosine of 1.56. All right, I'm going to type that in and I get 0.011. All fine and good. But let's look at these last two here, example 13 and example 16, okay? Now, cotangent, most of us probably don't have a cotangent button on our calculator. But just like cosecant was 1 over sine, cotangent is 1 over tangent of whatever we're finding. Okay, so you got to type it in like that, 1 over tangent of negative 2, and that should give you 0.458. Okay. All right, last one here. We've got secant of 1. Again, your calculator probably doesn't have a secant button. You're going to do 1 over cosine of 1. And when you type that in, you should get 1.851. Okay. So this is really more an exercise than just making sure that you know how to use your calculator, but like the ones that are nice angled on our unit circle, we can just go find like the y value if it's sine or the x value if it's cosine. Okay. All right, I'm going to stop this video here. Come on back for part 2 where we take a look at the graphs of sine and cosine.